How do you know if you're even solving the right problem? What if you don't even understand what you're disagreeing with someone about? Are you about to start a business that's a waste of time? What if you're about to lose a good employee, but you could avoid it? In this episode, you'll learn one of the most important questions you can ask in 8 crucial situations. This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd DeWalt, and it's my job to help you, the construction business owner, create a business that does 3 things. It creates freedom, impact, and wealth. And this is all about helping construction business owners eliminate chaos in their businesses and maximize profits. So according to the internet, Albert Einstein once said, if I were given 1 hour to save the planet, I would spend 59 minutes defining the problem and 1 minute resolving it. In this episode, you'll learn about 8 situations you want to ask this question. What the is the real problem? Here are a few of the situations you can ask the question, what the is the real problem? When you find yourself in any sort of disagreement or negotiation. If you're planning to start a business, if you want to make more money as an employee, why you want to ask this question when you're selling. This one may surprise you. You'll learn about some problems you can avoid when you think, important word there, when you think you have an employee performance issue. And we'll talk about a few situations you may be dealing with where the real problem isn't so obvious. I've got a couple of resources I want to share with you before we jump into that. Let me ask you 2 questions. How many hours did you waste in the last month doing free estimates? And then how many profit bleeds, like rework, lost time, schedule delays, and even uncomfortable conversations have you had in the last month because of free estimates? Look, a growing number of builders, remodelers, and commercial general contractors are getting paid to do pre-construction planning and estimating. They're getting paid for their time. They're wasting less time, maybe even no time, with tire kickers. And they're cutting out a lot of the profit bleeds that are caused by free estimates. But what could I possibly say to a potential customer to get them to pay me for an estimate when everybody else does them for free? If you're wondering that, there are 3 specific questions that you can ask on your next appointment to get your prospect and maybe even get yourself to see that it's in their best interest to pay you for pre-construction services. Don't send out another free estimate until you learn these 3 questions. Go get your free training video with those 3 questions over at buildermasterclass.com/script. That's buildermasterclass.com/script. As a contractor, you manage a ton of jobs every day, and trying to keep up to speed and ensure work actually gets done takes up way too much time. And that's where Company Cam comes in. Every photo and video your guys take at a job is automatically organized by location and instantly synced from the field to wherever you are. Now, you'll know exactly what's happening across your company, be able to communicate more effectively, and cover your butt from future claims. Document your jobs, communicate with your crews, and protect your company, all with Company Cam, the only app every contractor needs. Get started today at companycam.com/CLE. All right, let's talk about 8 situations where you should ask, WTF is the real problem? First is when there's some sort of a disagreement. When you are disagreeing with someone, in many cases, you're not even really clear on what you're disagreeing about. People are emotional, people are making assumptions and speculation, and you're not even sure what the problem is. So it's good to ask, what is the real problem? What are we trying to solve? And here are a few things you can do, a framework you can use when there's a disagreement or a conflict, or maybe you're negotiating. Start with this. Where are we not aligned? What are we not aligned on? Break down the problem. Start with the outcome. Are we aligned on the outcome? Are we trying to accomplish the same outcome? Are we operating from a different set of facts? Like, what facts are you based on? Let's find out what information people the information the other person is based on, and then also find out what assumptions or what speculations are they making. In many cases, if you're not aligned on outcomes, then there's probably no sense trying to continue. If you're going in two different directions, then you can stop right there. But if you are aligned on outcomes, but they're operating from different facts than you are, then you can find some common ground and both start using the same set of facts. Or maybe they're making some assumptions, or they're speculating about some things that you can smoke those out and say, it seems like you're assuming that this is the case. Here are some actual facts. So when there's a disagreement, or there's some sort of conflict, or you're negotiating, ask yourself, what is the real problem? What's the real problem here? Number two, the second situation to ask this question in is if you're considering starting a business. Regularly, I talk to people who will schedule a call with me, or they'll send me an email. They'll say, Todd, I'm excited. I'm planning to start a business. I'm going to start a crane rental business. And guess what that person did for the last 20 years? They ran cranes. They were a crane operator. And I'll hear from people who will say things like, I'm planning to start a business and I'm passionate about teaching people about building science, or I want to convert the world. I want everybody in the world to know about the benefits of straw bale house building or some obscure technology. What they're saying is, they're saying, I like this. I know this. I think this is cool. Or I want to educate people about this. And the mistake they're making is trying to wrap a business around something they like, something that they know, something they think is cool, something that they want to educate people about. The right approach is to ask the question, what is the problem that people are willing to pay you to solve? If straw bale houses are not solving a problem for people, no matter how much you love it, no matter how passionate you are about straw bale houses, you're not going to be able to wrap a business around it. Similarly, just because you know crane rentals and you know how to operate cranes, there may not be enough of a problem that can be solved with your idea to sustain a business, or it just may not be reasonable. So get away from what you like, what you know, what you're passionate about, what you want to educate people about. Start with the problem. Ask, what is the problem? Maybe even start with the type of people who have money and who have problems to solve, and go away from what I call the person with a hammer business development strategy. Here's what that looks like. The person with a hammer strategy is the person that's walking around with a specific hammer and they're in search of a nail. There's an old saying, to a man with a hammer, every problem is a nail. And for people who have a specific skill set or a hobby or a passion or experience driving nails with a hammer, they're always going around looking for nails. A much better approach to starting or growing a business is to be a person who's not looking for nails, but they're looking for problems. And their approach is, hey, I have a box of tools and skills, and I can solve a variety of problems. I'm not just going through life looking for nails to drive. So look for problems. Don't look for specific nails to drive, specific solutions. Start with the problem. Ask, what is the problem here? And when you can find the overlap of a problem that people will pay for and you can solve profitably, you have yourself the makings of a good business. Number three, if you want to make more money, whether it's in your job or in your business, then you need to understand the law of compensation. The law of compensation says that the amount of money you earn will always be in proportion to the difficulty of the problems you can solve or the number of people you can solve problems for. Let me say that again. The amount of money you earn will always be in proportion to the difficulty of the problems you can solve or the number of people you can solve problems for. So if you want to make more money, you need to tackle bigger problems or be able to solve problems at scale for people. So what you want to do, let's say if you're an employee specifically, don't ask for more money. Ask the question, what's the real problem here? What are the painful problems that my company is dealing with? And then go demonstrate your ability to solve it. For example, if punch lists are a nightmare, or you're having profit bleeds, or you're having schedule overruns, or customers are just walking all over your company, or you're having trouble finding a specific trade partner, look for the problems. These are some consistent, perennial, really big problems that people are willing to pay for. Selling, negotiating. Here's one, handling conflict. If you can handle conflict, that's like a superpower. The ability to lead a team. Turning around problem projects. I did this about 12 years ago. The guy brought me in to do some consulting for business development, and I kept hearing about this specific project that was a nightmare, and it was months behind schedule, and they were looking at $75,000 worth of liquidated damages, and it was already in liquidated damages, and the project was about halfway done. So it was bad, and it was stopped. Work had stopped for months. Lawyers were getting involved. No way out, and I just kept hearing about it. So I raised my hand and said, let me take a swing at this. So I stepped in and got the project moving and ended up getting the project completed, negotiated some additional work at a pretty profitable rate for a change order, was able to get the project done, got the liquidated damages down, and got through it. And the business owner was pretty happy with that because I stepped up and saw a problem and addressed it, because that was a very painful problem. Frankly, they didn't know what they were going to do. It was probably over their head. They had never been in a situation like that. It was already a large project. There were a series of mistakes that were made that got it into that situation. But look for problems. Be a problem hunter. And in this case, you may want to take the approach of ask forgiveness rather than ask permission. If you see a problem, then step into it. Do some work. Come up with some solutions. Come up with a proposal. Go to your leadership team and say, I recognize this is a problem. It seems like this is a problem. Here are a few ideas I came up with. Would you like me to jump in on this? Remember the law of compensation. The amount of money you earn will always be in proportion to the difficulty of the problems you can solve or the number of people you can solve problems for. So let's talk about problems. Putting boxes of cereal on a grocery store shelf is a problem. Somebody needs to do that. But it's a relatively low-level problem. A lot of people can solve that. That's why it's worth $12 to $15 an hour to solve that. If you manage a team of people who are putting cereal boxes on a shelf, that's worth a little bit more money. If you are managing a team of carpenters or electricians or concrete finishers on a construction project, let's say you're a crew leader, that might be a problem that's worth, say, $50,000 to $75,000 a year to solve. If you are a project manager or a superintendent who can manage a $5 million project on your own, that's a big problem. And that's a problem that fewer people can solve, and it's worth, say, $100,000 to $150,000 a year. If you can manage an entire company That includes people who manage teams, and you can manage a company of 20, 30, 40, 50 people. That's a tough problem. That's a smaller group of people that can solve that problem. That means it could be worth $150,000 to $200,000 or more to run that company. Now let's talk about solving problems at scale. The law of compensation says that your income is proportional to the number of people you can solve problems for. Let's say you are an Uber driver and you decide to use your vehicle and give people rides, right? One group or one person at a time. That's a problem. People who've been drinking have the problem of, hey, I don't want to get a DUI, I don't want to get killed, and I want to be able to make it back home safely. That's a problem. And you can make 25, 50, 75 bucks an hour, maybe, solving problems for one group or a small group of people at a time. If you create a platform like Uber that allows thousands of people to make money with their car, then you are solving a big problem for a lot of people. You're solving problems at scale, which dramatically increases the amount of money you can earn. Let's talk about money. This is something that I think we should probably stop talking about making and losing money, right? Nobody makes money unless they're a mint, right? You don't make money, you don't lose money. Unless you lose money in your couch or it blows out the window of your truck, you earn money. And what you're calling losing money, you can go back and find exactly where that money went. Maybe you underestimated, you overspent, but you didn't actually make any money. You didn't actually lose any money, right? So let's talk about earning money. And on the flip side, maybe blowing budgets. All right, next situation where you want to ask this question, what is the real problem, is when it comes to profit bleeds and chaos on your project. I see a lot of people addressing symptoms on their projects. They're not actually addressing the root cause, the real problem. They're dealing with the symptom. They're doing the equivalent of playing whack-a-mole, right? If you remember the game whack-a-mole, it's maybe an old reference, but at carnivals and fairs and theme parks, they had this game called whack-a-mole where you had a mallet and these moles would pop up and you had to whack them. And when you're dealing with playing whack-a-mole, you can either get faster, work on your reflexes, work on your quickness, maybe get an extra mallet and get better at whacking moles, but you're just dealing with the symptoms. If you want to eliminate the problem, then you need to switch your mindset from getting better at playing whack-a-mole to being an exterminator. How can we eradicate moles? How can we create an environment where moles don't even want to exist? They don't even want to live in this yard. And that means getting to the root cause of the problem. And the best way to get to the root cause that I know of is to take a few minutes and go through the 5 whys method. 5 whys, W-H-Y. And it's very simple. You start with the abnormal condition, what appears to be the problem. What's going wrong? We have, let's say, for example, rework. We're spending a lot of money on rework. Why is that? Why are we dealing with rework, which is a big profit bleed for a lot of contractors? We're building stuff once, tearing it out, buying new materials, providing more labor, taking more time to build it again, and getting paid once. And using the 5 whys method, you would ask, why are we experiencing rework? Why are we doing this? And you would come up with a reason, and then you would ask, well, why is that? Why is that happening? And come up with an answer, and then ask again, why is that happening? And keep asking why until there are no more answers. And at that point, you've arrived at the root cause. So asking, if you're dealing with some sort of symptom, some sort of chaos, some sort of profit bleed. Maybe it's a schedule overrun, rework, unsolicited charity, where you're doing work but you're not getting paid for it. Perhaps you don't have enough time, low productivity. Ask the question, why? Keep asking the question, why? And you'll get to the real problem. But start with that question, what's the real problem here? Now let's talk about selling. When it comes to selling, how does this question tie into the sales process? Well, there's a big mistake that I've seen a lot of contractors make, which is giving the customer what they ask for. That's right. Giving the customer, building what the customer asks for can be a big mistake because they don't know what they need. They don't know what they need. Your job is to help find out what the real problem is. Your job is to ask, what's the problem? Because every project is a solution to a problem. Every project is a solution to a problem. And if you don't know what the problem is, it's possible the project won't be successful. Let me give you an example. Back in 2014, 2015, I was working for a real estate developer, and we landed a project to build a new office building for Valvoline. This was going to be a $25 to $30 million project, and they needed to get out of their existing space and have a new building. They came to us and said, we need a 140,000 square foot building. That's what the RFP said. So we assumed that they knew what they needed, and we started down the path of assembling the design team and sending it out for bids to a couple of general contractors. And we were several months down the road and doing the design for a 140,000 square foot building takes a while. This was pretty significant. At about 2 or 3 weeks before bid documents were supposed to be issued, they came back and said, we said we needed 140,000 square feet. It looks like we actually need 162,000 square feet. Now, at this point, structural drawings were complete. Most of the architectural drawings were complete, and we had to scramble and revise the design and add 22,000 square feet to this building. That was a big problem. And the mistake was we started designing without a program. We didn't know what their problems were. We assumed they did, but we jumped the gun and didn't ask, what's the problem? And the answer to the problem would have been things like, we have this many people that will sit in this building. Our cubicle size will be this. Our number of conference room seats will be this. We need this many seats in our cafeteria. We need a fitness center that's this big. Those were the answers to the problem that this building design needed to solve. So that caused a lot of chaos. And frankly, that project lasted another 18 months and we never got caught up. It was a constant churn of chaos because we went too fast at the beginning and we didn't clearly answer the question, what's the real problem? Now let's imagine a smaller scale. Imagine that a remodeling contractor gets a call from a couple and they say, Todd, we want you to renovate our house. And let's say I'm the contractor, and they come to me and they tell me they have a $500,000 budget. And they want to do a full gut on their house, and we prepare designs. They sign off on it. We finish the project, and then we come out to the project at the very end to drop off the gift basket, and then we find out that their child is disabled. Their child's in a wheelchair. And they didn't tell me that. They didn't tell me that they had a disabled child. They didn't tell me that they needed zero-entry showers. They didn't tell me that they needed a house to accommodate someone with mobility issues. And I didn't ask. I just gave them what they asked for. Imagine how that would feel and how they would feel after spending $500,000. But the problem is they don't know what they need. They're not professional customers. So your job is to find out what the real problem is. There's nothing worse than finishing a project and then it doesn't work for the client. It's not, whose fault is it at that point? It's hard to answer. Imagine an industrial project that's very process intensive, and a year and $10 million is invested, and then it doesn't work for their operation. There aren't enough dock doors, or there's not enough ceiling height, or there's not enough room for racking, not enough office space, and it just doesn't work for them. Remember, every project is a solution to a problem, and it's your job during the sales process to find out the answer to the question, what's the real problem here? Situation number 6 is you think you have an employee performance issue. When you think you have an employee performance issue, maybe you find out that here are some common symptoms of what appear to be performance issues. I hear things like, my people aren't taking ownership. My people don't solve problems. They come to me with everything. They ask 1,000 questions. Details are slipping through the cracks. Every problem lands in my lap. My phone never stops ringing. And those can appear to be employee performance issues, but let's ask that question. What's the real problem here? It's very possible that you don't have an employee problem. It could be that you have a process and structure deficiency. Hundreds of years ago, people, specifically polar explorers, started experiencing these really weird symptoms as they were trying to get to the South Pole. Incredible fatigue, spots on their gums, bleeding gums, just all sorts of things, and even leading to death. And they thought it was the presence of some weird bacteria. Scientists at the time thought, well, it's probably because of the darkness or the cold, or they thought it was the presence of something. But in actuality, it was the deficiency of something. It was scurvy. It was the deficiency of vitamin C. And they completely missed it because they didn't understand what the real problem is. So if you're dealing with what appear to be employee performance issues, you should take a good hard look. What's the real problem here? Is this an employee issue, or is this a leadership issue? Is it a structure issue? Do we need to clarify roles and responsibilities? Do we need to get processes out of my head and get them documented and available for people to be able to access? Number 7, this is one I hear every once in a while. I actually had a conversation with a guy a few weeks ago, and I started to hear some of the early indicators saying things like, these young people, they just don't want to work anymore. They feel that they're entitled and they want a handout and they're always asking for more money. And you just can't find good people. And then he told me, I went through 20 people in a year. And at the time, he had 3 or 4 employees. And I said, hold on. You're telling me you went through 20 employees in a year? You hired and fired 20 people in 1 year? He said, yeah, because they don't want to work. These young people, they don't want to work. And I said, I'm going to be honest with you. There's a pretty good likelihood that you are the problem. That you're the problem. And there's this, the real problem here is, in some cases, this mental malware that is going on in your head, right? If you believe that young people don't want to work, if you believe that young people are entitled, if you believe that you're the only one who can do things, if you believe you have to be the best at something, if you believe that nobody else can do it as well as you can, then you're the problem. And you will create a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Here's how that works. If you believe that you have to be the best estimator in the company, nobody can estimate as well as you are. You have this secret sauce of estimating, but you decide you want to try to hire somebody, you bring somebody in, and then they're actually pretty good at estimating. And then they start bringing some ideas in that you've never thought about. And then your clients are saying, wow, this new person, wow, they're great. They're really doing a great job. If you believe you have to be the best, then here's what's going to happen. If you believe you have to be the best, you will consciously or subconsciously start to cut the legs out from under this new person. Every time they make a mistake, you'll jump on it. Ha! You messed this up. Or you will set them up for failure. You will sabotage them. You will not recognize good performance. And eventually they'll get fed up with it and they'll leave. And then you will say, I knew it. You just can't find good help these days. That's how a self-fulfilling prophecy works. So if you can't find or you can't keep good people, you need to ask the question, what's the real problem here? If you have an employee retention problem, then it's not them. If you're going through 20 people a year, they're not all the problem, right? If someone has been divorced 8 times, there's a common denominator there. And of those 20 people who have gone through this revolving door of a company, there's one common denominator. Could be the employee or the employer. It could be the other people there. There could be some unwritten rules about new people that are sabotaging their success. Some of those unwritten rules are, you have to pay your dues. When I was their age, it was different. And back when I was an apprentice, or back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, this was how it was done. Listen, stop trying to impose things from 20, 30, 40 years ago onto the new generation, right? Unless you just want to be left alone by yourself. Because if you are convinced that employees are a problem and nobody wants to work, you won't have to worry about that because you won't have any employees to deal with. They will all leave. Let's talk about a few counterintuitive examples about how this question shows up. What's the real problem? The first one, this is a set of symptoms that I hear a lot. We have chaos on the job site. People are always looking for information. Materials are late. We have schedule delays. There are profit bleeds. We have rework. We're having to scramble around, constantly reactive mode. Ask the question, what's the real problem here? And I can tell you, in many cases, the real problem is a bad handoff. The real problem is that the crews in the field don't have all the information, authority, or problem-solving abilities that they need. There has been a poor handoff from the office to the field. The real problem is a bad handoff. If you have customers micromanaging you, customers who are constantly asking questions, constantly walking the job site, constantly wanting to talk to your subs and suppliers, it may not be that they're difficult people. The real problem could be that they have lost confidence or they have low confidence because of some issue on your end. Communication, maybe you've dropped the ball, maybe the information you've shared with them about the budget hasn't been tight, but those are not necessarily just the symptoms of crazy customers, they're symptoms of low confidence customers. Another example that I hear a lot is, I don't have time. I don't have time to hire. I don't have time to work on my business. I don't have time to put systems in place. I don't have any time. Builders and remodelers and general contractors say these things to me all the time. And then I'll dig in further and I'll find out that they're spending 20 hours a week doing free estimates, or spending 80 hours a month on estimates that don't go anywhere. So the real problem is free estimates. That's the real problem. I hear this one a lot. I can't keep good subs and trade partners. I can't find good trade partners. They don't want to come to our job. They won't show up on time. They won't communicate with us. Well, in some cases, I've found after digging into it that the real problem is, if that's you, your jobs could be disorganized. It could be that you're paying slow. It might be that they have to eat costs on your job. It could be that you or your people act like dicks to them and they don't like working with you. You're just difficult. That could be the real problem. That could be why, that combination of factors could be why they're not showing up on your job, because you're disorganized. The job's not ready when they show up, when you say it's going to be ready. You pay slow and they have to absorb costs. The real problem could be they would rather just go work somewhere else because your jobs aren't profitable for them. One last one is, if your crew productivity is poor, if you're thinking, our crew is just not productive, they're just not getting projects done, they're slow, they're wasting time, they're unmotivated, and all this sort of stuff. When you ask the question, what's the real problem? It could be that there's just not enough planning. It goes back to bad handoff. Maybe they're spending too much time in stores. Maybe they don't know what winning looks like. Maybe they think they're being productive, but nobody's ever told them what productive looks like. They don't have any production targets. They don't have any milestones. They don't see the big picture. Maybe they're spending too much time on their phone talking to people in the office, in your office. Maybe that's the problem. So ask the question, what's the real problem here? So I'm all about implementation. So my challenge for you is to think about, which of those situations do you want to start with? Do you want to ask that question? What is the real problem? Is it a disagreement or a conflict that you're dealing with? Are you considering starting a business? Would you like to make more money for the company, at the company you work for? Would you like to eliminate profit bleeds and chaos on your project? Is it selling? Is it a situation that maybe looks like an employee performance issue, but it could be something else? Or do you have a retention problem? As always, I encourage you to take action. What is one thing that you want to do, that you can do to implement this strategy? What is one of these situations? You can ask the question, what is the real problem here? And if you want to solve some of the structural deficiencies and process deficiencies that I talked about, if you want your team to solve problems without you, if you feel like everything is in your head, if you feel like everybody's coming to you with every problem lands in your lap, if you feel like you're the bottleneck in your business and that you've hit this ceiling of complexity and you just can't grow anymore, then here's something for you. There's a free webinar called Get Out of Your Business, How to Make It Run Without You this year. And here are a few things you'll take away from this webinar. 3 things you should do before your next hire. You'll learn a proven process to design your business for the future, design your organization for the future. You learn how to get it all out of your head, not the voices, but all the good information about how you sell, everything, all your processes that are currently residing in your head, how to get it all out of your head. You'll learn the secret to motivating your team to take ownership and solve problems without you, and the secret to getting your team to implement a process And you'll walk away from this webinar with the single most powerful question that you can ask. You can go sign up for that webinar at constructionleadingedge.com/get out. That's constructionleadingedge.com/GETOUT, and watch that webinar, Get Out of Your Business, How to Make It Run Without You this year. So did you get value out of this podcast? If so, would you please take 60 seconds and leave a review on Apple Podcasts? If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, here's how you do it. Open up the Apple Podcast app, go to the icons at the bottom of the screen and choose Search. Search for Construction Leading, and this podcast will open up. And click on the show. Click on the show, not the episode. Scroll all the way down to Ratings and Reviews, and then click on Write a Review, and then also leave a rating. If you could do that, I would really appreciate it. That'll help spread the word, get the word out there on the interwebs, and more people will be able to see it. As always, I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I challenge you to implement some of this stuff. Thank you for what you're doing, and I'll see you next time. Remember, with Company Cam, there's no more second guessing about what's getting done or pestering your crews to send you pictures. Every photo and video your guys take at a job is automatically organized by location and instantly synced from the field to wherever you are. Now you'll know exactly what's happening across your company. Get started today at companycam.com/CLE. If you're a busy construction business owner, there's a chance that you don't have good visibility into your financials. You could be getting reports too late or not getting reports at all. Or maybe you're not even keeping your books at all, and you really don't have any idea what your numbers are. Think about these questions. Are your jobs really profitable? Do you even know? What's your real overhead, and what does it mean to your earning potential? If a bank asks for a balance sheet, do you even know where to start? Look, if you want to offload your bookkeeping or payroll headaches, or you just want better financial reporting, the Apparatus Contractor Services team can help you. Visit goapparatus.com to hear from other construction business owners they work with and see how they can help you. That's goapparatus.com.